This podcast is sponsored by Lecky textbooks, revision guides and practice papers. Everything you need to learn, review and prepare for your senior phase assessments. Browse the books at www.leckyscotland.co.uk and get 40% off using the discount code LeckyPodcast40.
There's something about football which is that international language.
Because it's in the DNA. Football means everything to Scottish people.
Every single person is capable of far, far more than they believe.
I was standing in the tunnel next to Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, Cafu. There was that many famous faces in that tunnel. I was the only one I didn't recognise.
And you look back at the times which really tested you, and you realise what you were thinking and doing in that moment.
If you're not failing in this industry, you're not learning.
Absolute bedlam. That was the noise inside Hampden as Kenny McLean scored from the halfway line against Denmark to confirm Scotland's place at this summer's World Cup. 28 long summers have passed since Scotland last competed at the planet's biggest sporting spectacle. And following Scotland's not for the faint-hearted, but when you get a moment like that, it makes it all worthwhile. In this special World Cup episode of the Higher Biology podcast, we explore why football means so much to so many people, how sights, sounds and emotions can create memories that last a lifetime, and why some supporters are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to follow their team. We'll examine the physiological and psychological demands of extreme endurance challenges, discover what it takes to grow the grass that Scotland will play on at the Gillette Stadium, and explore the science, stories and passion behind football's greatest stage. To kick us off, I've returned to Scotland's national stadium and sat down with one of the country's most recognisable football voices, Hugh Keevins. Surrounded by some of the greatest names in Scottish football history inside the Hampden Museum Hall of Fame, I began by asking him what thoughts and emotions came to mind as we sat inside the home of Scottish football.
I think my first visit to Hampden as an 11-year-old, 1961, Scottish Cup final, Celtic Dunfermline. The crowd was 113,000 plus change, and it was a goalless draw. And I still marvel at 113,000 people inside a football ground. And I've been here so many times, both as fan and as working journalist. I think of all the great games. I think of all the dramatic moments. A riot on Cup final day in 1980. The great Scotland matches here, qualification for West Germany in 1974. Joe Jordan's header against Czechoslovakia that night. Walking back from Hampden back into the city centre because you couldn't get transport. It's called the National Stadium for a reason. It belongs to the nation, and the memories belong to the nation.
The last time I was in this stadium was watching Scotland beat Denmark with one of my best friends, and like yourself, Hugh, I've been coming to Hampden for as long as I can remember, with memories stretching back to games with my dad as a child and right through to the Euros during COVID in an eerily half-empty stadium. Why do you think football has such a remarkable ability to create memories that stay with us for decades?
Well, because it's in the DNA. There was a reason why in 1961 113,000 people were there, because football means everything to Scottish people, not just people in the west of Scotland, all over the country. And the memories are cherished, kept with you for a lifetime. And I spoke to someone only this week who told me that he gave up his 2 tickets for the Scottish Cup final this season because he wanted to give them to his wife's father because he was 80 and he wanted to make sure that his father saw the cup final. And he gave the other ticket to his father-in-law's son so that he could see his father watching what might have been his last cup final.
And what does the World Cup do to amplify those emotions for us as a nation?
Well, I was in the Radio Clyde studio on the night that you refer to, the night of the Scotland-Denmark game. McTominay's goal, Tierney's goal, Kenny McLean's goal. I still laugh whenever Kenny McLean gets the ball and the chant of "shoot" goes up. But I was in a studio that day with Scott Allen, former Hibs Celtic player, and he was overcome by excitement. And Scotland Strip literally jumping around. And I said, as soon as McTominay's shot went in, I said, best Scotland goal I have ever seen. And we came up with a list of alternatives, but it remains the best Scotland goal I've ever seen. And the effect, the after effect, McTominay's mural on a wall near the Hampden Park Stadium, just everything about that night was incredible. I don't think we'll ever be beaten, incidentally. And we're speaking before the World Cup finals. That night will never be surpassed. I don't care what happens in America, nothing will take the place of that night.
It was certainly a bit of a roller coaster that night, Hugh, with plenty of drama, and of course supporting Scotland has come with plenty of disappointment over the years. We're about to speak with Craig Ferguson, who's walking across America from LA to Boston in time for the World Cup in order to raise money for the charity SAMH. But Hugh, what is it about Scotland that makes fans willing to suffer physically and emotionally to follow them?
I could say masochism, but I'll try and make it simpler than that. Back in the day, people would accept highs and lows, success and failure. As the late, great Bob Crampsey always used to say to me, with good, there will certainly be bad. And that was our code when watching football. Today, it's different. Today, people have a problem handling success and failure. They overcommit and they have to rein themselves in every now and then, I think. But everything's bigger now. The football's bigger and better. The grounds are bigger and better. And the match day experience, as they call it, is bigger and better. There are myriad flaws, but I watched St Mirren Partick Thistle in the Championship playoff, and the size of the crowd was tremendous, and the commitment to both clubs, not big shiny clubs, but part of the fabric of Scottish football, and the people were there with them, and that's replicated throughout the country. Aberdeen had an awful season with big crowds. People still have that abiding love of Scottish football.
One man who's channeled his love of Scottish football into an extraordinary challenge is Craig Ferguson. He's currently walking 3,200 miles across America, aiming to arrive in Boston in time for Scotland's opening World Cup match against Haiti. Over the course of just 100 days, Craig will cover the equivalent of more than 120 marathons, pushing both his body and mind to their limits while raising money for mental health support in Scotland. To explore the physical and psychological demands of such a challenge, I was joined by friend of the podcast and world record holding endurance cyclist Mark Beaumont as we caught up with Craig from the side of a road somewhere in the United States. Mark, when you hear that a Scotland fan's walking across America to the World Cup, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think having pedalled across North America twice in my life, I've got a better appreciation to most as to how far that is and just how challenging that is. When people talk about America, they think of sort of one one country like Scotland, but we forget how small Scotland is. The geography, the climate, the culture, it's so different each state, each part of that journey. I mean, it's an awesome project, to walk it, to do that on foot. Is absolutely brilliant, and I've got a lot of respect for what Craig's up to.
Craig, whereabouts in America are you this now, and how are the legs holding up?
So I'm actually about 5 miles from the borderline between Pennsylvania and Maryland at the moment. So I'm about to cross into state 13. I think this is day 85 on the road now. So making a lot of progress, but the end is in sight. I'm almost there. The thought of the finish line pipes in Boston is getting me to the end at this point, to be honest.
And what was the moment that this idea stopped being a crazy mad thought and became something that you were definitely going to do?
To be honest with you, I think the exact moment that the idea became like, oh, this is going to be a reality, was that 18th of November when Scotland qualified for the World Cup. It was that night was so special for multiple reasons. Obviously, as a Scotland fan and a huge, follower of Scotland, I was buzzing for the fact that my nation were going to the World Cup. So that in itself was a celebration. But then also, I think about an hour later, I had the realization of like, now you need to walk there. I think the idea for it kind of started all the way back obviously back in 2024 when I completed my walk from Glasgow to Munich. That was just such an amazing and such a special trip. And Mark's obviously done so many incredible trips himself, will know that the feeling of that just sticks with you forever. And I always said that given the opportunity again to do something similar, I would do it in a heartbeat. And little did I know that 2 years later we'd be qualifying for another major tournament. And yeah, on that night, that's when that dream kind of was like, okay, you better dust off the kilt and the walking shoes and get back out earlier than expected.
And Mark, you're certainly somebody that's travelled significant distances within 85 days, as Craig's mentioned. What can you tell us about what goes into the endurance and the performance of these long journeys?
I think for those who have not been on a long journey before, there's a massive difference between imagining it and people watching the journey, and then what it's like to actually deliver that. Because you go from the big picture, the world, the continent, the ride or the walk that you're going to do, to then it's all about momentum. It's all about progress. It's all about really simple routines, getting the right food in, staying hydrated, sleeping, and progress. Your happiness is dictated by keeping the momentum, walking the road in front of you, riding the road in front of you. Having pedaled around the planet twice, does it really feel like I've cycled around the world? No, I rode the road in front of me, woke up every day, rode a bit further, and one day you end up back where you started. And I think everyone else has the privilege of seeing the big picture and the journey you're on, whereas when you're in it, it feels very different. And, anyone can walk the road in front of them, anyone can cycle the road in front of them, but it's when you zoom out and realize how far that can get you and how far your own determination and physical ability can take you. I think the other thing to point out, for a lot of people who go to the gym and are fit, there's two sides to anything endurance. One is physical ability, basic fitness, and the other is conditioning. And conditioning is a very different thing to being physically fit. There's loads of people who are fit but haven't pushed themselves into ultra endurance. And the first week's in many ways the hardest. Because conditioning is just the impact from being on your legs all day. On the bike, it's the saddle sore, it's the neck, it's the hands on the handlebars. The sheer attrition of just hours upon hours, days after days, weeks after weeks. That the conditioning is something that people forget. I know lots of really fit people who struggle with ultra endurance because they think that being physically strong is it, but actually the conditioning, the wear and tear to be able to do this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and in many ways your body adapts to that in week one. And once you're through that, it's amazing what the body can get used to, these extraordinary routines.
I honestly couldn't agree more with everything that Mark just said. Like it's so true, and I think that it's all well and good. The one thing of the watching it, people see obviously the highlights and stuff, and they see what the journey looks like from a sort of zoomed out point of view. But the reality of it is people watch maybe maximum 1-2 minutes, 3 minutes of what is a 12 to 14 hour day every single day. And that, I think, is by far the hardest part. Exactly again what Mark said. It's all well and good kind of going out and pushing your body one day and absolutely emptying the tank, and that's all well and good. But it's then when you get in and you remember, right, okay, I now need to recover because tomorrow we're going away again straight away, and there is no time for respite. Obviously, every now and then you're able to kind of try and do your best to catch up with recovery, but I found the exact same thing coming out here. Obviously, hadn't done challenges previously. The training camp for this was obviously very, very intense. I knew what I was getting myself into. This challenge, obviously, as I'm still doing it now, is about 3 times bigger than what Germany was, and it's going to be even more than that. So Germany ended up being around 850 miles, obviously, by the time that you took the mileage out of crossing over the sea. So I'm currently at about 2,600 miles at the moment. So I knew it was going to be far harder than anything that I'd ever done. And that was one thing that I always wanted to kind of constantly humble and remind myself of, is like, just because you've done this once doesn't mean you can do it again. And the thing is with these endurance challenges and being out on the road for so long is that there can be hurdles and things that can come up all across the way, and you never really know when they're going to come up. I have the kind of attitude of like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, right? When I was coming up and over the Rockies, I could have been eaten by a bear, right? And that sounds ridiculous, but it is a genuine threat, and it was something that obviously is a concern. But the way that I kind of live my life and the way that I view going into these challenges is, it's like, I will cross that bridge when it comes to it. I will deal with issues as and when they pop up. There's no point in spending every minute of every day worrying about what could go wrong. And it is exactly what Mark said. It's focusing on what's in front of you, right? Tomorrow, I know I need to do it again. And if you zoom out, I know I need to walk 3,000 miles across America. That sounds grim to anyone. It's horrible. And even my own thought of when I go, I'm doing that, it swamps you, because you go, is that even possible? But exactly what Mark said, when you don't walk across America, you walk 30 miles a day, you walk 40 miles a day, and before you know it, you make so much progress, and you're like, wow. But yeah, Mark, I had the exact same experience. The first week, the first 10 days, I would say was probably the hardest of this entire challenge so far. And then your body kind of settles into it. It's after you get over that initial hump and that shock of like, oh, we're doing this again. This is the reality again. It's not, I wouldn't call it survival mode. You obviously want to try and preserve getting into that as much as possible. But it is that like, right, we need to have a gear shift here, because we're not just getting up and living a normal life anymore. We're doing this crazy walking thing now.
It's funny at this point in the journey, 2,600 miles in, because your mind, when you're really in a journey, can start to play tricks on you in terms of you sort of visualize the end, 10,000 times. And then, you'll know this from your last walk, Craig, where the first week when you're getting used to the idea is tough. And then the final week or weeks are quite difficult, because you're so close and yet you're so far. Your mind sort of gets ahead of yourself in terms of that finish line. And then, of course, when you get there, it doesn't feel particularly real at all, because you've overthought it, you've over-visualized it, you're sort of pinching yourself thinking, is this time for real? And I can think of so many times towards the end of expeditions where you actually have a bit of a slump in motivation, because it's there, but it's not quite over yet.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for a way to make biology unforgettable for your students? At Field Studies Council Millport on the Isle of Cumbrae, they bring biology to life through immersive curriculum-linked fieldwork. Their expert tutors, PVG cleared and first aid trained, guide learners through real scientific investigations, from sampling ecosystems to analysing data and completing full advanced hire project work. Everything's provided: risk-assessed field sites, residential accommodation, equipment and learning materials. With around 7 hours of tutor-led hands-on experience each day, students gain confidence, independence and a deeper understanding of biology in action. So why just learn biology when you can live it? Find out more about this trusted provider at www.field-studies-council.org/locations/Millport.
Yeah, completely. I mean, even like every single day, me and Matthew, who's my support driver, who's driving the kind of van, every day now we're waking up like we're so close. We're so close. And everyone even mentioned, you're almost there, the end's in sight. But exactly like you said, the end is in sight, but it's still doing exactly what I've done for another 25 days. That is the key piece of it. So you're right. It's like, try not to get too carried away with it and remembering the task at hand. Well, obviously giving yourself the kind of leeway to be like, right, get excited about it, visualize that end. And I don't know about you, Mark, but like every day that passes, that visual gets stronger. It comes clearer as I sort of get closer. But yeah, like you said, that it's not just a click of the fingers and you're there just because you've done so much already. It's that you need to show up every single day. And I think that's why it is so, like, it's the relief of finishing, because it's like, it's not just the elation and wow, I've done this amazing achievement. It's that, like, oh my God, I can actually breathe now. Like, I don't need to go again tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to it. But no, it's been an amazing journey so far.
What can people really do then when they set their mind to something, particularly when it's something they're really passionate about?
For me, I think that obviously same with cycling. How long were your days, Mark, when you were out every single day? I imagine it was a long stretch each day.
Yeah, I mean the ride the world record is 78 days riding, so it's 16 hours a day for 2.5 months.
Wow, man. Wow, it's incredible. And yeah, he's exact same then. So I think when you're out for that length of time every single day, you have so much time to think about everything, to ponder on all of life's questions, if you will. But for me, I think one thing that it teaches me, and I don't know if this is maybe like looking into it too much, but it teaches me that every single person is capable of far more than they believe. And I think that there'll be some people that watch my challenges and what Mark's done and stuff and think, yeah, but they are freak athletes, or they are got this crazy level of endurance. But I don't think that that's necessarily true. It rings true to a certain extent, but I've never been the tallest, the fastest, the fittest, the best stamina, anything like that. But I wanted to go out and do something where I could prove that there's something that I can do. There's something that everyone can do. And I think that it teaches me that, yeah, for everyone that's watching, I think that people are capable of so much more than what they actually would give themselves credit for.
Mark, there's nobody better placed on the planet to talk about endurance and physical performance and turning up day after day. What advice would you give to Craig just now and to everybody listening, particularly with regards to that slump that you mentioned towards the end of journeys?
I think when you're taking on these big journeys, it has to start with sort of the inner fire, the intrinsic motivation. When you're doing something on this scale, you can't be doing it because somebody else has asked you to do it. If I say to somebody, go and run 10K, or they decide to run 10K, they'll feel very differently about that exact same task, depending on whether they've decided to do it or I've told them to do it. And I think that that why has to be your own why. And I think what's wonderful about Craig's journeys, and I've had the privilege over the last 20 years, is then to have a platform to be able to share. So it's got to start with your why, but then you never know how it affects other people. Craig's not a coach, I'm not a coach, but by sharing these stories, you do give people the quiet confidence to maybe reprioritize what they're doing and take on journeys. I took a call earlier today from a guy and his girlfriend who were planning to cycle around the planet for a year. And, he said, I read your book, and, it just gave me that catalyst to actually turn it into an action. And there is no greater fuel to the fire for me, even though I do these things for wonderfully selfish reasons. I just want to go out there and take on great journeys. And, I'd do it if nobody was watching. The fact that, we can share, you just never know how it affects other people's lives. And it's wonderful fuel to the fire when people turn around and say, in some small way, I'm doing this because, you sort of unlocked the ambition that I had already within me. And, I know Craig's doing this amazing walk, for his own reasons, but also to support SAMH. When it comes to mental health, when you're having a tough day, the best thing you could do in life is metaphorically get arrows pointing out the way. Look up, look out, try and make your world bigger, not smaller. And I know it's hard to say these things sometimes when you're having a tough time, but, doing something which positively affects other people, and clearly getting into the outdoors are wonderful things for mental health. And, when you can shoot those metaphoric arrows out, support other people, share positive messages, you just never know where that'll help people. And it sort of anchors you. You come back and say, well, that gives me further fuel to the fire to do these things. So I think, it's awesome what Craig's doing, and I'm sure he'll get lots of sports and accolades and get to enjoy the games when he gets there. But ultimately, it's the fuel and the fire at this point to not just finish the journey, but also to use that platform that he's got to help other people as well. Craig, I was just saying before you came online there that to Paul that I was in Morocco yesterday, and I was there for the last 4 days, and obviously Scotland are playing Morocco on the 19th of June.
Yeah, that's right, 19th in Boston. Yeah.
So there was a lot of good banter in Marrakesh over the last couple of days with taxi drivers, with people down at the market. I don't know a lot about football, but it gave me there's something about football, which is that international language, isn't it? And suddenly when they found out I was Scottish, they were so excited. They were like, right, Brazil, Haiti, I talked about the group, and I very had to quickly swat up on my facts so I could speak to my new Moroccan friends in terms of the World Cup. So there's something wonderful about it, isn't there?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think that's why I always not always, but I think that's why a lot of the time I like to focus the challenges around maybe like a football tournament or stuff, because especially for the reasons of men's mental health, one thing that I always said right back at the start was like, football is something that gathers people together in such a tribal fashion that not many other things can do, right? I think everyone sees that, especially being from a country like Scotland where, football runs in the blood of so many people. And that's what I kind of wanted to use that as a platform to then be like, well, if there's all of these people, and especially men, like was the focus of the last challenge, I said, if they can put some of that passion into open some of that discussion up about a football fan who's then doing this for men's mental health, I think that it was a really good bridge between that. But the football aspect, and like you said there, I think it's another thing that I just agree with so much, is that these challenges start out for many different reasons. And whether it's the going for the football, or whether it's because I'm just young and adventurous and want to do some cool stuff in my life, like it does initially start out as that. But you're absolutely right. If you didn't have that fire in your belly, if you never truly had an idea that really grasped you and made you want to do it, like you would just chuck it so early. And I think that's what's rang true for me all the way through. And obviously, as we get into this final stretch, is that, at the heart of it, remembering why I've done this, like, why do I do this? And it's because I set out this goal of wanting to do it for myself. And then on top of that, what starts as your little challenge, or your baby, if you will, of like planning and all that, and you get so bogged down in the details. And then, especially when you start doing something like this for a cause like mental health, as soon as everyone else starts to kind of chat about their story, why it means a lot to them, why they, get inspired by it, very quickly you're like, oh, this isn't just my challenge anymore. Like, I'm doing this for every other person who's kind of following along. So I'm so excited. The end, yeah, it is in sight, albeit a long way away. But yeah, I can't wait.
It's interesting when you've done challenges like this and when you're in it, because there are periods of real tedium. There are periods where you just need to think your way through the task. There's suffering, there's pain, there's injuries sometimes. But whilst you don't go looking for these things, you do realize, and maybe you have to do these a few times, you realize it's an absolute privilege.
Yeah.
It's an absolute privilege to put yourself into a position where the outcome from what you're doing is uncertain, where you need to work for it. People are very used to taking on things where, yeah, it might be exciting and adventurous, but ultimately they know they can do it. And, there's something amazing. I think humans are at their best when they're striving. And whilst you don't go looking for failure, I think it's good to have that level of uncertainty, because then you sort of punctuate time. You look back and say, that's what I did, and then you look back at the times which really tested you, and you realize what you were thinking and doing in that moment defined the success of the whole project. And it's interesting, having done expeditions for 20 years, how I think back to how I was when I was 22, 23. And, how I thought about the scale of those metaphoric mountains, and then the mountains just get bigger, and, you think differently about the tasks. But, ultimately, it's a privilege, because so many people don't have the time, the resources, the confidence to take on their ideas. And when you realize that you're doing what you want to do, but ultimately other people are vicariously living their dreams through what you're doing. That's a ton of fun.
I couldn't agree more.
And what I've heard from that is echoes very much being a Scotland fan. There's struggles, there's pain, can take a long time, and the occasional injury along the way. So I guess being a Scotland fan's a bit of an endurance sport as well. I'm going to finish with 3 very quick fire, 1-word answers to both of you. Favourite recovery food?
Oh, I'm obsessed with bagels at the moment. I don't know about recovery, but I just so versatile. Bagels are a staple in my diet at the moment.
Well, I'll stick to a US answer because what Craig's doing. Have you discovered Bear Claw? Those cakes?
Yeah. I know exactly what
cakes,
you're talking about.
so those cakes that you can get in most petrol gas stations, we'll talk American, they pack about 1,000 calories into a cake about that size. So Bear Claw.
Noted.
Most overrated piece of kit that you could have done without?
Oh, most overrated. That's such a that's a great question, to be honest with you. I mean, some people would say walking poles, but to me, they're I've needed them so much. So they definitely don't fall into the overrated category for me. Matt, you might be able. What's been the most pointless piece of kit that I've packed? Do you reckon? Well, have a think, Mark. Have you got anything that sticks out to you?
Cycling around the world the first time, I never used my compass until I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And bizarrely, the only time in an 18,000-mile ride that I ever needed my my compass was I had a state scale map, the entire of Arizona. And then I was in the city of Phoenix, and I had no idea how to get out of the city of Phoenix because it's such a sprawling mess of a city. So the only time in a half-year journey that I used my compass was in the middle of a city, and I thought I just need to head east. So that's the one bit of kit in America that I only ever used once, and it was bizarrely to get out of the city.
And is the journey going to be
Matthew
worth
just
it?
said to me a compass as well. That's what he just said as well.
Is the journey going to be worth it? Will Scotland qualify from the group?
Without a shadow of a doubt, yes, we will do it. I'm a hopeless optimist. Like, I'm walking there to go to the game. I cannot say that we won't do it. Plus, that little bit of hope. Yes, it's what kills you when we inevitably crash out, but I need to believe it. It's going to carry me over the finish line. So yes, we will get out of the group.
It matters, but it doesn't matter. Rob Wainwright and I have the privilege every year of leading the big My Name's Doddy ride, where we carry a match ball to the Six Nations, and we led 300 riders, 150 support in the sport. So 450 total did a 700-mile journey to Dublin this year. And we booked out 450 seats in the Aviva Stadium, and it was this amazing project. We got there and we got absolutely gubbed. But did we have a good party? Did we have an amazing weekend in Dublin? Did we earn every mile and all the fundraising for the charity? For sure. I mean, the fact that the result didn't turn out as we wanted it to, it was fine.
Well, I guess we can then end it on the most cliche saying of all time. It's not the destination, but it's the journey that counts. I guess that's what we're going to say.
Yeah, and if we don't let you leave on that sentiment, you might never make it before the first game.
That's true. I've got another 15 miles or so to get through today, so another half of the day. So I'll get out and I'll do it. But I really appreciate the time. Thank you for chatting. Both of you are really, really good.
Well done, Craig.
While Craig's journey to the World Cup is taking 100 days, preparations for this summer's tournament have been years in the making. The road to 2026 began back in 2018 when FIFA members voted 134 to 65 in favour of the joint North American bid at the FIFA Congress in Moscow. Since then, organisers have embarked on an endurance challenge of their own, planning stadium upgrades, transport networks, security operations, fan infrastructure, team facilities, and of course the world-class pitches on which the tournament will be played. Back at Hampden, I asked Hugh how the pitches he watched players perform on in decades gone by compare to the surfaces that Scotland could encounter at this summer's World Cup.
I remember the days when, in the snow, teams would put hay on the park. Bales of hay were around the periphery. How primitive do you want it to be? Still good football played on hay, let me tell you. I've watched a few. But today, everyone knows about pitches in the same way that they know about medical science. and they treat the pitches with care. You might not like synthetic surfaces, but you get synthetic surfaces which players can play on and play well on. Personal preference, I'd rather have grass always. But the pitches are, by and large, very good. If your team's poor, it's not the pitch's fault.
During the 2026 World Cup, there's as much chance of seeing snow on the pitch as there is of seeing any hay bales at the side of the pitches. Since the 1950s, global temperatures have risen by just over 1 degree Celsius on average. That might sound like a modest increase, but it has dramatically increased the frequency and intensity of extreme heat events around the world. For football, that presents challenges both on and off the pitch. Players face a greater risk of dehydration, fatigue and heat stress, all of which can reduce running intensity and impact performance. Groundskeepers and plant scientists face their own battle, as hotter, drier conditions increase water demand, place additional stress on turf health and make it more difficult to maintain consistent playing surfaces. Research from Imperial College London and the 2025 report Pitches in Peril highlights how climate change is set to have a growing impact on World Cup football in the years ahead, with tournament organisers expecting world-class surfaces that are both visually immaculate and safe for players. The science behind growing elite turf has never been more important. For the past 8 years, specialists have been preparing the pitches that will host matches at this summer's World Cup. One of those people is Keith Salmon, whose team at Tuckahoe Turf Farms grew the grass that's been installed at Gillette Stadium in Boston, where Scotland will play 2 of their Group C matches against Haiti and Morocco. I tracked Keith down to find out what it takes to grow a World Cup pitch.
Yeah, my name's Keith Salmon. I am the director of sports turf at Tuckahoe Turf Farms here in southern New Jersey. We are a family-owned sod farm in the southernmost part of New Jersey. We specialize in growing Kentucky bluegrass, turf type tall fescue, and Tahoma 31 Bermuda grass for residential, commercial, and our biggest thing is professional sports with soccer, football, baseball, a little bit of lacrosse, some tennis here and there. So anything you can think of with grass, we do in some shape or form.
So Scotland scored a winning goal at the Gillette Stadium. Keith, you'll be claiming an assist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will definitely be claiming an assist on that one for sure. I know it means so much to you guys to have Scotland in the World Cup. Means even more to us that we are a part of the World Cup. So we will be rooting for Scotland to get the win.
And obviously, when people are watching the World Cup games at the Gillette Stadium, they'll be focusing on the football. But for yourself, you'll see a living crop. What does it actually take to grow grass to be used at that level?
Yeah, I mean, to be able to grow grass at that level, you obviously need a lot of experience. You need a lot of patience, and you really need to be able to know that if you don't know something, then reach out to some of your counterparts, some of the guys that we are very familiar with across the country on the West Coast who are doing the same thing that we're basically doing. Always be able to find some time to reach out to them, to pick their brain. But yeah, it's a full-time, taking care of a field that's going to be going to a World Cup venue in particular is, it's something that we really dialed in with just the amount of time and efforts that we've put into growing that grass in the ways that that FIFA wanted us to grow that grass. Primarily, the grass is grown on a non-permeable sheet of plastic here at the farm, and that that really helps the roots almost turn into like a phone book when they try to hit that plastic. They just kind of shoot out to the sides. So it really becomes, almost basket woven with roots, and it is a very superior type of method of growing grass. And come transplant of the grass, it should really enjoy the new home wherever it may be transplanted, Boston in this particular instance.
And how did you find yourself growing the grass for the World Cup? What's your own journey been to become the guy that's growing the grass that the Scotland players will run out on at the World Cup?
Yeah, luckily enough for me, when I was in high school, I had a really good idea about what I wanted to do. I was a four sport athlete, so I spent a lot of time out on the grass. In particular, I was more focused with baseball. Lo and behold, I grew up in the town of Hamilton, where Tuckahoe Turf Farms is located, about 3 miles down the road. So I actually started working here when I was 15 years old, and throughout high school, throughout my time at college up at Penn State University, I was able to work here and really get to not only just maintain grass, but actually grow it. From the time that it's a small seedling sitting in a bag in our warehouse to when it's 1.75 inches thick and being rolled up and going to an NFL stadium. So it's been a fun journey. It's definitely been a long journey.
And did you study any biology at school, Keith?
Yeah. So I have a 4-year degree in turfgrass science from Penn State University. So yeah, throughout those 4 years, we did have some biology classes, more just broad plant biology. And then once I got into the final years of college, I was able to kind of dial in a little bit more to turfgrass.
And I guess then turf management is really a form of applied plant biology.
Yeah, it is. It is very much a form of plant biology. I mean, everything that we do here, from the moment we plant the seed or sprig the grass, it all is coming back to some sort of biology. Obviously, we are a lot larger here. We move pretty quick with how we do things. We're kind of on a time crunch in some instances with weather and sod needs. So yeah, we focus a lot on the biology of the plant, how it's moving. Is it getting what it needs to produce strong, healthy rhizomes, stolons, good roots that we can really get going, so that we can get this grass harvested.
It sounds like your job's really about maximizing photosynthesis then, to a point.
Yeah. We myself in particular, I deal a large amount with Bermuda grass. The one thing that, well, actually, the two things that Bermuda grass needs to really thrive is heat and sunlight. So I'm the guy who is loving the 100-degree days and the full sun days here at the farm. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, as in a whole, we do rely a lot on that process to be able to get these plants moving, get the seedlings up and strong and healthy and anchored into the ground before it gets too hot here in the summer, and making sure that we can produce a strong grass that we can harvest, so that when these teams and stadiums call, we can confidently send this sod to them, and they can instantly play on it as soon as they can get the sod down and painted. You're going to be putting 2 NFL teams on that, or 2 soccer teams. So yeah, it's extremely important for us.
When we teach photosynthesis, we talk a lot about limiting factors, which include light and temperature and carbon dioxide. And you've obviously just mentioned light and temperature being the 2 things that you really rely on. How do you balance natural sunlight with the controlled environment that the turf needs to be able to prep it and do it within those timeframes that you mentioned?
A lot of it is out of our control. Sunlight in particular here, we obviously do get a lot of sun, but we do have patches in the springtime where we might not see the sun for 3 or 4 days. I mean, just last week we got over 3.5 inches of rain and a 30-degree temperature drop after 3 or 4 days in the high 90s and full sun, and then we drop down to the 60s and 50s with no sun and 3.5 inches of rain. And that's an extremely limiting factor for us. But as farmers, we need to be able to strike when the iron's hot. So, this weekend in particular, we are very sunny. We have a lot of catching up to do because of how much, good rainfall that we did get. So, we really need to hit the ground running when the time calls for it. And for most of the growing season for us here at the farm, it's a 7-day a week job, 24 hours a day. If you can say that. We harvest sod throughout the morning, daytime, nighttime, and whenever we can get onto these fields to do what we need to do to them, we will, no matter what day. If there's a holiday, if it's 7 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the morning.
You mentioned NFL players and football players get out onto the pitch. How do you stop the stress of affecting the growth? So whether it's the kind of shade within the stadium, heavy use, damage from studs.
Yeah, I mean, our job here at the farm is to grow the strongest sod that we can in the time frames that we see fit for our clients, whether they may be the NFL, Major League Soccer. Once the sod gets to them, it is it's more or less on them to decide how they're going to manage it with sunlight and wind, moisture, shade. But they'll always reach out to us with really any questions that they have. We have so many different clients that have so many different types of stadiums. Some are indoor with removable retractable roofs. Some are completely outdoor, full sun. Some are full sun outdoor but very stagnant air. And then some are, soccer stadiums in particular are very shaded. So, that is something that we do hear a lot about. Primarily for us, it's making sure that, if this grass deteriorates in the stadium over a period of time because of these problems, we need to be ready to make sure that we have grass ready to go in there at a moment's notice to get it fixed.
And what can you tell us about the Gillette Stadium itself?
Gillette Stadium's pitch has been something that I've been working on for probably the past 3 years with the rest of the farm here. It is a Kentucky bluegrass blend with an overseeded ryegrass mixture that was grown on plastic here at the farm. So essentially what we do is we will grow and harvest that sod in our native soil fields where we can really monitor it, get it to the thickness that we need, make sure we're applying the correct amount of top dressings. And then once the time is right for us, which is solely a weather factor, we will harvest that sod, transplant it onto one of our plastic fields that we have here, which we call pods. We will transplant it onto plastic where everything is fully laser graded, in-ground irrigation. And then once the sod is completely installed, we will begin to top dress it, get some ryegrass seed down, and really get it to tighten up and get those roots moving. So it's been it was a very tedious process, a process that we don't necessarily do often when it comes to bluegrass because of our climate here. But we were extremely successful with it from the moment that it went onto plastic and was rolled up off the plastic and installed at Gillette Stadium earlier this year.
And why did you decide on those specific types of grass seed? Is that something that came from yourself, or is that decided by FIFA?
Yeah, so we've been working with FIFA and the stadiums very closely for probably the past 5 to 6 years. You know, we do a lot of business with Gillette Stadium in particular, and the New England Patriots. They have all of our sod at their practice facilities. They have all of our sod at their New England Revolution Major League Soccer practice facilities. So we have a very good relationship with the head groundskeeper up there, Ryan. And yeah, when it was time to really decide on what was going to be the best fit for Gillette Stadium, it came down to Kentucky bluegrass with a ryegrass mixture blended in. You know, I think it's gonna produce a great playing surface for these athletes.
And how much do you think the quality of the grass affects the way the game's played?
Yeah, I mean, I think the quality of the grass is very important to the way that the game is played. Obviously, the one thing that everyone looks at first is aesthetics, which is very much tied very tightly to the quality of the grass. You know, being a turf manager, working with the NFL, working for the NFL, you know, I look at it a little bit differently as to, you know, what these athletes really want. You know, it may look really good. The health of the plant, you know, might look phenomenal, the uniformity, the quality, but, you know, you might not have enough. It might not be firm enough to where these guys like it. So there's always different characteristics that each team, each player, each stadium may like. But, you know, I think the quality of the grass is one of the, you know, the number one important factors of the playability of the pitch. We really want to produce a pitch that, you know, not only looks good, but, you know, plays good and is safe for these players. Player safety is the number one priority for us here at, you know, the farm, and for sports field managers across the country and the world. Aesthetics comes second, obviously. If we can get it to look extremely nice and stripe up really nice, that's just a bonus. But there's been so many instances where you're watching a game on TV, or you're at the game working, and you're like, man, this field just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on TV. It just doesn't look good. And then after the game, you have coaches coming up to you and you're saying, hey, listen, this field played phenomenal. So, you know, so that's really our number one goal here, is just to, you know, produce a great grass that is safe for these players to play on in a moment's notice.
How do you know when the grass is thriving biologically and not just looking green on the surface?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different tools here at the farm. We have a lot of experienced, you know, I have a lot of experienced coworkers here at the farm who have been doing this since, you know, before I was actually born. So, you know, 30, 40 years of experience. So, you know, in today's world, we do have a lot of new technology with, you know, moisture management, with, you know, strength management. So we, you know, periodically throughout the throughout the week, we'll go out and check root depth. We'll take plugs, we'll take samples, we'll do soil samples, we'll do tissue tests. We'll be going out with a TDR moisture meter to make sure that moisture is adequate and follows along with what type of weather we're going to be having in the upcoming days. So it's more of a feel. It's more of a feel type of thing. As far as the quality of the grass. I mean, you can drive by grass and drive by a field and you say, oh, hey, that looks really good. But you can put a shear vein strength tester on it, and it could be testing, a 7 and an 8, which means it doesn't have that great shear strength, and that is really the most important thing that we can do here, and it's something that you just have to learn with time and being on the fields and paying close attention to when you're mowing and spraying and verticutting cultural practices. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that takes a lot of time, and honestly, it takes a lot of failure. If you're not failing in this industry, you're not learning in a sense.
And how has the grass used in these stadiums changed over the years then?
I think I could speak for the whole world. It has come a long way. These stadiums now are very much a multi-use event center. So the grass that is going into these stadiums has to be essentially game ready when the moment it hits the floor. So the grass has to be stronger. It has to be healthy coming in, no matter if it's 95 degrees out here in New Jersey and it's getting sent to Cleveland, where it could be colder and rainy. It has become very, very intense, the way that the grass is being grown and how much time you really have to get it ready and get it harvested, get it on these trucks, get it delivered so that these guys can do their thing and get the athletes back on it.
Scotland will play 2 games at the Gillette Stadium on your grass, and our entire country will be looking at that grass and really hoping that something special happens on it. So if it doesn't, we'll certainly hold yourself to account, Keith. Yeah,
and listen, we are very good at taking full responsibility if there's any issues with the grass, but I think it's gonna play really well. I have all the faith in the world in the groundsmen up there who have been taking care of this grass, and I have all the confidence in the world that the stuff that we have done here at the farm and the technology that has been designed for this grass through FIFA and a couple of different accredited universities will prevail for this World Cup. Hopefully Scotland.
Yeah, and hopefully Scotland play as well as the grass then.
Yes, for sure.
So it sounds like we should accept that the pitch itself isn't really something the players will be able to hide behind. But it leaves a bigger, more unpredictable factor. What happens in the mind when everything is on the line? That's what I wanted to explore next with Hugh. Whether the pressure of these big occasions can genuinely affect performance at the top level, and how it separates those who thrive from those who struggle when it matters most.
Not if you're a real top star. I think you can live with the pressure. The saying they have is pressure is a privilege. But I go back. My first game at Hampden as a working journalist, 1970 Cup final, Aberdeen versus Celtic. And the legendary Jock Stein, the losing manager on the day, as it turned out, came into the foyer where the press had gathered. Didn't have a fancy press room as they do have now. and he denounced the referee very loudly. And I thought, wow, is it always like this? And 56 years later, yeah, it's still like that. People will denounce referees. The pressure gets to people in different ways. Some can take it in their stride, others crumble under it. I've watched a few good men who simply couldn't handle the pressure on a consistent basis, and it was their undoing as managers. Others, for example, Steen, while denouncing the referees, lived with the pressure, and, you know, first Briton to win the European Cup, first man in Scottish football to win 9 in a row. And then you go to the second man to win 9 in a row, Walter Smith. Walter Smith could live with the pressure, embraced it, but was always conscious of how much it was taking out of you at the same time. Because he was the one who coined the phrase, at the end of an Old Firm game, there's no elation, there's no celebration, there's just relief, it's over.
And as we sit here in the Hall of Fame, Hugh, at Hampden, you were pointing out your old pal Alex Smith in the picture next to you. What separates those pictured in this room from the rest?
Alex Smith was one of the men who could handle the pressure, won the Scottish Cup with 2 teams, neither of which was Celtic or Rangers. So Alex Smith embraced the pressure. One of the smartest guys I ever came across, as well as being one of the nicest men I ever came across. He just knew football. He understood it as the best ones do, as I said, Walter Smith, Jock Stein. You go back over the Billy McNeils, the John Greggs, etc., etc. That's why they have statues outside a ground, because they were genuine greats.
One man who knows all about the pressure of representing Scotland at major tournaments, including playing against both Brazil and Morocco at the World Cup in France in 1998, was Tosh McKinlay, who I caught up with at the Celtic's first team training ground in Lennoxtown, where he's now involved in scouting and analytics. Tosh, what was it like to go to a World Cup with Scotland?
Well, it's every schoolboy's dream, obviously. I was lucky enough to go to Euro 96, but to go to the World Cup with your country it's a pinnacle of your career, and obviously involved in the first opening game against Brazil was a dream come true as well. Well, just the family being there, you know, in the Stade de France, the opening game of the World Cup, doesn't come any better than that. I was standing in the tunnel next to Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, Cafu. There was that many famous faces in that tunnel. I was the only one I didn't recognise. So it was a dream come true. You obviously get through the whole campaign. I'd played in all 10 qualifiers to get us, obviously, that magnificent spectacle. So to actually be standing in the tunnel and actually have a chance to go on for the last 12 or 15 minutes, it was fantastic.
We came pretty close that day. Yeah,
well, the preparations weren't that good because we actually didn't do a warm-up because of the opening ceremony on the pitch. And Craig Brown was obviously, he liked to detail, he liked to warm up, he liked to get players focused, and we couldn't really do that because we're warming up inside. So we lost an early goal, but come back into it. John Collins scores the penalty, and then we're unlucky at the end with Tom Boyd scoring the OG.
The campaign then ends in disappointment. Classic Scotland, as we've done every year that we've been at the World Cup until this point, and not making it through the group stages. So what does it take mentally to keep going and have that belief to keep coming back to the well and going again?
Well, we were really unlucky at Euro 96 because it went to goal difference. The Dutch scored in the last 5 minutes or so. England absolutely pulverised them that night, and they scored, and it was 1 goal that put us out. So we're pushing.
Villa Park.
We were obviously Coisties get the goal. We thought was going to set us onward way, and then we needed another goal, which unfortunately we didn't get. So the World Cup, it was in our hands. So all we needed to do was beat Morocco that night. So I think Euro 96 was a bit harder to take because it actually went to goal difference.
I can tell you I was probably the only person in the stadium at Villa Park that hadn't realised that Holland had scored at Wembley, and jumped out of my seat. And my dad somehow managed to get his tickets to that game at Villa Park in '96. And at the end of the game, I thought we'd done it. And I was jumping up and down, and I just felt a random man's hand behind me just put his hand on my shoulder, and like, it's not happened. As the reality became clear. But it was an amazing atmosphere in Birmingham. I remember it as a kid, the atmosphere of how many people had gone down. You would have seen it again in France, and now we see a mass exodus of people going over to the United States. How does that support inspire you as a player, and does it give you that extra boost and extra level of energy on the pitch?
Well, you've been a punter yourself, because I remember going to Wembley with my father and my grandfather, and knew you were getting an opportunity to go in the park for them to watch you or other people to watch you. So it's a kind of surreal moment that you've been there as a supporter. Now you're getting a chance to actually affect the game. But you want to play, same as at club and international level, you're playing for the punters, because they turn up in their droves, and it'll be no different. It'll be hook or by crook to get to America to support the team. And when you see that sort of support, then you're playing for them, because that's what it's all about.
Tosh, you obviously now you're heavily involved in analytics and scouting at Celtic, where you played for so long yourself. How have you seen the game change over the years in terms of the sports science and the nutrition?
No, big differences. Obviously, there's so much staff now that the players have got everything that they need. So there has been a big change, obviously, in stats and analytical. Looking into the games, the diet side of the games, because back then we were only really touching it. Brian Scott at club level was trying to introduce it.
He was a physio.
But it was well underway here when Brian was here to try and get the sports science side of it up and running. So it's a big thanks to Brian for doing that. And the international team, it was a bit different, because everybody's coming together and it's different club to club what everybody's been doing, you know. But I must say the SFA done everything in their power to give us everything possible that we could want, and now you're seeing a big change in that side.
For young people that are maybe studying biology and science at school and interested in getting into sports, just how important are those roles, the sports scientists, the physios, the nutritionalists, the doctors?
Very important, and it's obviously down to the player where they take that information on or no, but I think the modern day player is taking that on board, and it can only enhance their career. They last longer, more endurance during games, and I'm talking about the longevity in terms of their career as well. At the top end, they must get a couple of 3 or 4 more years out their career if they actually take on board what the sports science are saying. And
how will you feel looking at the Brazil and Morocco games this year after obviously playing in them in '98?
Well, for me, it was a long time coming, because there's nothing better in the summer of the World Cup and your team's in it. So I'm really looking forward to the tournament. It'll bring back a wee memory, obviously, the Stad going out there, obviously, to play, but before the game, going out there with the kilts, and everybody was taken aback with that. So hopefully we can get to the next stage, get that monkey off our back. And I've heard Steve Clark saying that this group of players can go on from tournament to tournament now. I was lucky enough to go to 2, so hopefully they can build on that and keep going to the World Cup, because that's what we're used to in the past.
And that night at Villa Park when you won against Switzerland, that's one of my biggest football memories of all time, certainly supporting Scotland, and I was lucky enough to be there with my dad. So thank you, Tosh, for that night, and thank you very much for coming on the Higher Biology podcast.
Not a problem at all.
Back at Hampden, I asked Hugh what he hopes future generations will come to understand about the unique place football holds in the hearts of so many people in Scotland.
I think they'll instantly recognise why it matters to so many people, and always has done. When I walked in here today and saw Alex Smith's photo, I'm immediately taken back to the 1987 Cup final where Alex Smith won St Mirren the Cup. I look at old friends, Tom Tiny Wharton, the referee. I remember a giant of a man, used to come out holding the ball in one hand to start the games everywhere. David Neary, I see David Neary's photograph, the infamous toe poke against Brazil. I walk in here and it's just memory after memory. Eddie Turnbull, when he was manager of Hibs, once said famously of one of his players who was not performing well, all his brains are in his head. And that worried him because he wanted the brains in his feet. I just look everywhere. Walter, I'm sitting beside Walter's photograph, a man who showed me so many kindnesses as a manager. I just walk in and look around and time evaporates, and it will be the same for future generations. To walk in here is to be instantly reminded of who you are, where you came from, when you watched that person, and your life in a pleasant way passes before your eyes.
You mentioned Walter, whose picture hangs just above where we're sitting, Hugh, and the kindnesses he's shown you over the years. Football can often divide people into colours and allegiances, but moments like that remind us of the human beings behind the game. What was it about Walter's kindnesses that left such a lasting impression on you?
I'll tell you the straightforward story as quickly as I can. My wife's sister had a child who had a brain operation, and they lived in England, but his father was a Rangers fan, and they asked me if I could get their son a tour of Ibrox. So I went over to Ibrox, and Walter Smith came out, and he said, "Shug, was I supposed to see you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What are you doing here then?" I said, "Walter." And I went into my sales pitch, and I was determined that this wee boy was going to get a tour of Ibrox. And I heard the voice saying, "Shug, Shug, Shug." And I said, "What? You're not telling me you've got Rangers supporters in your family?" So we both had a laugh. And Walter took the wee boy around Ibrox. Not anyone else. Walter Smith, the Rangers manager, took him around Ibrox and got his photograph taken with all of the Ali McCoys and Richard Goffs and Ian Durant's. Walter Smith did it. That was the mark of the man.
And from a lifetime spent covering Scottish football and meeting some of the game's biggest characters, what lesson would you most like to share with the young people listening to the podcast?
One thing that the game taught me as a working journalist, and I mention it to my grandson frequently, Archie, who's come with us today, be respectful of people. I hated it as a journalist when you were treated badly. And I knew who the culprits were, and I knew who the good guys were. And respect in the game is important. Respect in life is important. So treat people well. Show them courtesy. In my line of work, that doesn't prevent you from asking a hard question and doesn't prevent them from giving you an honest answer. Just treat each other with respect.
That certainly sounds like a lesson that applies far beyond football. Finally, Hugh, after such a long wait to return to the World Cup, what would success look like for Scotland as a footballing nation?
I'm beginning to wonder. We've handled failure so perfectly well and had a really good time. I'm beginning to wonder how we'd react to success. But we also have a track record whereby I would not be too certain of success in the United States of America. I would rather just wait and see.
And that's what we'll do. We'll wait and we'll watch to see what unfolds. Because when the whistle finally blows and the World Cup begins, it won't just be a tournament. It'll be a global heartbeat. Billions of people across every continent all tuned in to the same moments of brilliance, tension and possibility. And if you just take a step back, you'll see it. Science everywhere. In the blade of grass beneath the studs, in the precision of the training rooms, in the data, the recovery, the analysis, in the physios, the sports scientists, the nutritionists, the medics, all working behind the scenes to push the limits of human performance. But beyond the science, there's something even greater. Because the World Cup's not just about winning and losing, it's about connection, it's about people, it's about all of us, our hopes, our dreams, our heartbreaks, our resilience, and our respect for the game and for each other. So as the world turns its eyes to the pitch, remember this. This is more than football. If you enjoyed this episode of the Higher Biology podcast, remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts, and listen to our other episodes with leading scientists bringing the Higher Biology course to life. You'll also find short revision episodes to turbocharge your revision. And thanks as always to our sponsors Lecky, who produce amazing revision and practice guides, which you can find on their website www.leckyscotland.co.uk using the discount code LeckyPodcast40 for 40% off. Before we wrap up, if you're a science teacher like me, then you've probably already heard of Timstar. They've been supporting science education for over 60 years, and they really get what we need in the classroom. They've got over 4,500 products, including robust BMS microscopes and Bluetooth sensors that actually connect. Great for practical, hands-on science lessons. And through Scotland Excel, you get exclusive discounts, free delivery on everything, even ADR chemicals, and they offer free demos and training as well. So head to timstar.co.uk or get in touch with Lucy N. McCallum, your local contact here in Scotland, for advice or support.